when we consider when we consider the revelations that we believe in, we don't believe in God as a person who just wants to take his prophet and give him as many sexual partners as he wants. What we find in the Bible is that God calls his servants to a very high standard of morality. So what we're saying is it looks very suspicious that every time Muhammad has a desire, Allah gives him what he desires. And again, don't say, hey, we're accusing Muhammad of this. If you're going to get angry at us for saying it looks like Muhammad is getting whatever he desires, you have to get mad at Aisha as well, because Aisha herself noticed this. Aisha herself said, your Lord hastens to satisfy your desires. And that's what we're saying. But go ahead.
Yeah, what I'm seeing on this TV show is that you're getting it one-sided. You know, there's a beautiful sentence in the Bible in Proverbs 16:16 that says, how much better to get wisdom than gold. The wisdom is, you know, what about Moses? How many wives? How many of Jethro's daughters did he marry? If you look at Abraham,
only one.
Abraham, wait, you're cutting me off. You're giving it one-sided. I let you talk. Now let me talk.
Go ahead.
Now let's talk about Abraham. Abraham married a slave girl. Abraham married Hagar. Okay, he had Hagar and Sarah, right? And Jacob had, how many wives did Jacob have? How many wives did David have? How many wives did Solomon have? You're giving it one-sided, okay? All these prophets, all these men of God had more than one wife, and they had slave girls, okay? So if you're bashing Prophet Muhammad, you should look at the other prophets, okay? You're giving it one-sided, okay? And another thing.
Omar, one thing, because you say one more thing, so you're going on to another topic. Let me just respond briefly, and then we'll give you a chance to respond. You say we're only giving one side because we're not looking at the other prophets. Well, guess what? We never said Muhammad had 4 wives, therefore we condemn him. That's not what we said at all. We said he told all of his followers as a revelation from God that you can only have 4 wives. And then he had more. That's what we're pointing at. Moral inconsistency. You do one thing and I get to do something else. All of you have to follow a rule, but I, God's greatest prophet, I don't have to follow that rule. You get a certain number of sexual partners, I get more. You get 4, I get more. This is what looks awfully suspicious, and if you don't see why it would look suspicious to us, that the very man who is receiving the revelations is the one who happens to get more sexual partners than anyone else, and that this man, even though he tells his followers they have to keep their oaths in most situations, if they don't have a good reason for rejecting it, that this person who tells his followers they have to keep their oaths, he gets to make an oath to his wives and then not follow it. He gets to promise a specific woman to one of his followers and then take her because she's beautiful. He gets to arrange a marriage with his adopted son and then take the woman if he wants. That's what we're saying. And you don't see that from Abraham. You don't see that from David. You don't see that from Moses. You don't see that in the Bible. So we're not applying different standards. It's Muhammad who applied different standards. So if you're condemning us for applying different standards, no, we're applying one standard equally. It's Muhammad who had different standards for other people and for himself. But go on to your next point.
Okay, my next question is, okay, we're going to look at the whole history, okay? You're just starting at Muhammad. Let's talk about the whole aspect, the totality of the circumstances, okay? The Gregorian calendar starts with the departure of Christ. As you know, obviously, as a Muslim, we do not believe he died on the cross. He rose to the heavens, okay? Now, let me get this straight. Muhammad came 507 years after the departure of Christ, right? In between then, right, the biggest empire on the face of the earth was the Roman Empire, right? Okay? It was a paganistic empire. They had goddesses and goddesses. They had Apollo. They had Nike. They had Africa.
What happened? What happened?
Hello? Hello?
Did his phone die?
They probably dropped the call.
Omar, if you're watching, get on a better phone and call right back. We want to hear this.
Did we lose him?
Yes, we lose him.
Omar, call back in the phone booth. If Omar calls back, please move him to the front of the line.
Okay.
Right. You want to comment on his the Roman Empire was paganistic?
We don't know what his point was. Let me tell you what we do know.
He's saying that you are claiming that the Arabic Peninsula were pagans. Also, the Roman Empire was a pagan empire.
Now let's clarify. If you want to say that some practice of some festival or holiday that Christians practice, so let's say Christmas. Let's say lots of Christian families will have lots of Christian. Oh, okay. Well, let him. Is he on there? Omar, are you there?
Get cut off. You see, I knew I was going to get cut off, David.
What are you talking about? If we wanted
We
to cut
just
you
told
off,
you to call back
just
and give you to...
Okay, let me start when I started about the Roman Empire, okay?
Okay, go ahead.
What was the last thing that I said online? Because I don't know, because my TV was off.
All we got to was Romans believed in different gods and goddesses.
Okay, yes. So Constantine the Great was the first Roman emperor to accept Christianity, okay? But, you know, he did a lot of innovations, because you're talking about a gap of 570 years from Jesus to Muhammad, okay? You know, in the year 321, he changed the Sabbath from Saturday to Sunday, okay? And
No.
Exodus,
No,
it
that's
talks,
not true.
Thou shalt honor thy Sabbath in the Ten Commandments, okay? And
Omar,
you know,
you're
that's
mistaken
kind of
there.
a big innovation that is in the Bible, in the New Testament. Every time it keeps talking about the Sabbath, the Sabbath, the Sabbath. Why did the Sabbath, as a Christian, why do you follow your religious day on Sunday? That's what my question is to you. You're talking about Muhammad did this, Muhammad did that. Let's talk about the history. Let's talk about the history. There's a 570-year gap between Muhammad, peace be upon him, and Jesus.
Omar, can I comment?
About that on that show.
Do you want me to comment now? First of all, you're mistaken when you said that Constantine changed Sabbath observance from Saturday to Sunday. There's actually writings that predate Constantine. You can actually look at the writings of the church fathers and the apologists, and they'll tell you that Sunday was adopted early on because that was the day in which Jesus Christ was raised from the dead and was victorious over the grave and death. But I'm kind of surprised that you're saying that Sabbath is mentioned everywhere in the Old Testament and New Testament, but somehow we Christians innovated and changed Sabbath to Sunday. But the Quran also mentions the Sabbath as an observance that Allah gave to the Israelites, Bani Israel, but then your prophet comes and changes it to Friday. So by your same criterion, why don't you condemn Muhammad? And add to that in Surah Al-Imran, chapter 3, verse 50. This is your own Quran. And I'm not quoting it because I believe the Quran is revelation. You're a Muslim, you believe it, and I'm trying to use your own argumentation against Christianity, against you and your beliefs. In Surah Al-Imran, chapter 3, verse 50, it says that one of the functions of Jesus Christ, according to the Quran, which you believe, is that not only did he come to confirm the Torah in his possession, but he came to make lawful that which was forbidden to the children of Israel. That's in chapter 3, verse 50 of the Quran. And when you go and read the commentaries, the Mufassirin, the Muslim expositors, they explain that to mean that some things that were forbidden in the Torah of Moses, Jesus came and made it lawful. So then, by your criterion, why are you still a Muslim when Muhammad changed many of the laws that Allah gave to Musa? And not only that, but according to your Quran, Allah sent Jesus to also change some of the laws of Musa. So then why are you a Muslim and why do you believe in the Quran?
And I'll just add that even in the Bible we find Christians meeting on Sunday, and this is because because Jesus rose from the dead on Sunday, but also because the early Christian community was a Jewish community, so they would meet on the Sabbath. But then as a Christian, as a specifically Christian community, they would meet on Sunday, which they called the Lord's Day. So this doesn't come from any innovation of Constantine. If you want to learn about Christianity, I would suggest not going to bad websites to learn your information. We don't do that. What we learn about Islam, we learn from the Quran, we learn from the Hadith, we learn from the Tafsir, we learn from the Sirah literature. We learn it from your sources. We don't just go to a bunch of horrible websites and just regurgitate whatever we read there. But continue if you're still on the line.
I'm still on the line, definitely. So let me get this straight, okay? To Moses was revealed the Old Testament. To Jesus was revealed the New Testament. Now my question is, God updates his book, obviously, so humans could implement and substantiate their lives in following the laws. Because at the time of Adam, brother and sister, it was permissible for them to get married. So obviously, you're talking about, it's been 2,000 plus years since the departure of Christ, and you're telling me give me one prophet or one man of God that has come. You know what I mean? There's the Gospel of Barnabas, the Gospel of Thomas. Why aren't they included in the New Testament? The New Testament is composed of the Old Testament, which has Exodus, and then the Gospel of Matthew, Luke, John, and Mark. Now, why isn't the Gospel of Thomas and Barnabas not included in it?
Okay, well, here, let us, Omar, let us answer, and then we'll let you continue. You bring up the Old Testament and New Testament. You said the New Testament was given to Jesus. This is not correct, and it's not correct to say that the Old Testament was given to Moses. The Torah was given to Moses, but other books of the Old Testament were given to various prophets and kings and so on. The New Testament was not given to Jesus. There was no book that was given to Jesus. Jesus was given. Jesus delivered teachings to his followers. his followers recorded these teachings. But in the New Testament, we have Gospels, which contain, are about the life of Jesus from people who were actually there, not from people who came 600 years later and didn't speak the language and had no clue what Jesus did, but eyewitnesses who were actually there, or people who gathered information from eyewitnesses. And you have letters of Paul, you have various types of books in the New Testament. But what we find, you're absolutely correct, that God gives what we could call progressive revelation. We would refer to covenants. God, throughout history, has made particular agreements with particular groups. So God makes a covenant with Adam. That's an agreement. A covenant is an agreement. It's, you do this, Adam, and I will do this. We're making an agreement, and you have to live up to your end, and I'm going to live up to my end, because, you know, the Lord will live up to his end of the covenant. So there's a covenant with Adam, there's a covenant with Noah, there's a covenant with Abraham, there's a covenant with Moses, but all through the Old Testament, we're told that a final covenant is coming. There will be a final covenant that God will deliver. And we're given examples of what this final covenant is going to include. In Isaiah 9:6, we're told that God is going to enter into his creation. In Isaiah 53, we're told that someone is going to be sacrificed for the sins of the world. And what we find is that in the New Testament, this is the fulfillment of God's prediction of a final covenant, a final agreement that is coming. And this is the covenant that is meant for all people, and this is the covenant in the blood of Jesus Christ. Jesus died on the cross for sins, rose from the dead, proving that he is the fulfillment of these prophecies, and he claimed to be the divine Son of God. So this is, according to the Old Testament and according to the New Testament, this is God's final revelation for mankind. So this is the message that people in the world today are supposed to follow. What we are supposed to do is not, hey, we need another revelation. We are now entrusted with God's revelation to bring that to people, which is what we're doing here, which is what we're doing around the world. We are delivering God's final message to mankind. Now, if someone wants to come along and say, here, I'm bringing another revelation, we have to examine this very carefully to see if it conflicts and alters God's final revelation given in the New Testament. So if a prophet comes along who contradicts the teachings of Jesus, for instance, Muhammad says Jesus didn't die on the cross, he didn't rise from the dead, he never claimed to be divine, we look at that and say, wait a minute, this conflicts with the teachings of the Old Testament, because we're told in the Old Testament that God was going to enter into his creation, that he was going to die on the cross and rise from the dead. We're told that in the Old Testament. We're told when it happened in the New Testament, and then Muhammad comes along centuries later and says, no, it never happened. Well, unless you give us an extremely good reason to believe in Muhammad, we have to reject him as a false prophet. But every time we go to the evidence, we find that Muhammad can't be a prophet. We never find any reason to believe in Muhammad. All we find are reasons to reject Muhammad. So we reject Muhammad because he disagrees with the New Testament. He disagrees with the clear teachings of Jesus. We reject Muhammad because he received all of these self-serving revelations that have no purpose other than satisfying his desires. We reject him because he delivers the satanic verses, which, as we'll see in the next program, specifically identifies him as a false prophet according to the Bible. We reject him because we have prophecies in the New Testament of what false prophets are going to be like. We have a ton of reasons for rejecting Muhammad. We have no reason to accept Muhammad. So if you want us to accept Muhammad as a prophet, give us your best evidence. Give us your best reason for accepting Muhammad as a prophet. Omar, are you there?
Yeah, I'm still here. So let me start with this, okay? Moses, he took the children of Israel from Egypt and took them out through the Red Sea, okay? Immediately after the Red Sea, what did the children of Israel do? They made a cow, a heifer, out of gold, and they started worshiping it. And what is this? These are the type of people Moses and Jesus dealt with. They dealt with the children of Israel. They were people.
Omar, we'll let you continue. Omar, I just want to clarify one thing, and then I'll let you continue. One, yes, the people did try to worship the golden calf. Did God allow this, or did God immediately correct them so that his true revelation would be preserved? The fact is, God immediately rebuked them, and every time throughout the history of the Old Testament that people turned to paganism and idolatry, God sent them prophets and sent them punishment in order to correct them. In other words, God didn't allow them to continue in their rebellion. We get to the New Testament, and God delivers a revelation, we would expect the same pattern, namely God preserves it, and then Muslims today say, no, it's all been corrupted. Well, that's not what we know about God. We would